The PTA president's son thought humiliating his teacher was power, ripping her shirt in front of everyone. But Grace wasn't just a teacher. She was the silent queen. At the emergency PTA meeting, his father tried to fire her, laughing at her disgrace. Then Grace pressed a button. On the screen, video of the assault, followed by proof of his father's embezzlement. And the knockout blow? She revealed she owned 55% of his company. The room went silent. Father and son weren't predators. They were prey. As FBI agents stormed in, Grace stood tall. The teacher? She was really the boss. As the emergency PTA meeting began, the air was thick with tension. The president's son stood at the front of the room, his face contorted in anger and frustration. He had always thought that humbling a teacher would give him control over his father's business. But tonight, everything seemed to be unraveling. The door creaked open as the bureau agents strode into the hall, their guns drawn. The president's son felt a wave of fear wash over him, wondering if he was about to face a crisis that could shatter his family and change the course of his life forever. He had always been taught to obey authority figures, but tonight everything seemed different. The PTA president sat at her desk, surrounded by rows of students and parents who were all holding their breath in anticipation. Her eyes fixed on the screen before them, a video of an assault against her that was followed by footage of her father embezzling funds from his company. The room went silent as she took a deep breath and looked into the faces of those around her. "My son," she said firmly, "I'm not going to tolerate this anymore." Her voice shook with anger, but there was also a hint of vulnerability in it. She knew that if she did nothing, her family would be destroyed by their father's greed and deceit. Suddenly, a familiar figure stepped forward, Grace, the teacher who had always been so quiet and unassuming. As the president looked at her, a smile spread across her face. "Grace," she said softly, "you're not just our PTA president, you're the boss." The room went silent as Grace revealed that she owned 55% of his company's stock. The shock was felt by everyone in attendance, including the president's son. His father had always been a successful businessman, but now he seemed to have lost everything. Grace stood tall, her eyes fixed on the bureau agents who were storming into the room. "I'm not just going to sit idly by and let you take away what I own," she said firmly. "You have no right to come in here without my consent." The president's son felt a surge of anger at his father, but he also recognized that Grace was right. He knew that if they were caught together, it could spell disaster for their family. With a nod of her head, the president stepped aside and let Grace lead them out of the room. As Grace walked away from the emergency PTA meeting, she felt a sense of determination wash over her. She had always been an outsider in their father's world, but now she knew that she was the one who could change things for the better. The next day, she made plans to confront his corrupt business practices and expose him to justice. As the president's son sat down at his desk, he felt a mix of emotions: fear, anger, determination, and uncertainty. He had always been taught to obey authority figures, but tonight everything seemed different. But as he looked out the window, he saw Grace walking towards him with a determined expression on her face. "Grace," she said softly, "I want you to help me expose my father's corruption." And for the first time in his life, the president's son felt a sense of hope and purpose. He knew that they might not get away unscathed, but he was ready to fight tooth and nail for what was right. The end. 1. PTA president's son, TJ, thought humbling his teacher was a form of power. His son, TJ, had always admired the hard-working and dedicated nature of Mrs. Williams, their English teacher at the local elementary school. He saw her passion for literature and writing as an inspiration, and he longed to emulate her success in teaching. 2. The power surge. One day, When TJ's father announced that he was planning a merger with his rival corporation, TJ felt a sudden surge of excitement and determination within him. The idea of being able to achieve financial stability for the family business promised an opportunity to escape their humble life in a small town and create something bigger. 3. Confronting corruption. As the news spread about TJ's father's plans, he decided to take matters into his own hands by exposing the corrupt practices within his company that were enriching themselves at the expense of employees. He knew it was risky, but he believed Mrs. Williams would be a powerful ally in this fight. 4. The PTA meeting. One night, TJ led a group of concerned parents and students to an emergency meeting called by their local PTA president. They had heard about Mr. Williams' unethical practices and were determined to take action against him before it was too late. 5. Grace's plan. As the group arrived at the school, Mrs. Williams noticed them standing outside the office door, holding up signs with the company logo and slogans. She recognized TJ immediately from his father's business dealings and knew that he had a plan. 6. Grace's proposal. Grace approached TJ and introduced herself as the parent who would be leading the charge in exposing Mr. Williams' corruption. TJ, she said softly, I see how much you care about our community and its education. I believe we can make a difference together if only he will come to his senses. As TJ listened intently, Grace shared her plan with the group. 7. The confrontation. Mrs. Williams led the parents in an intense discussion with Mr. Williams, emphasizing the devastating effects of their actions on employees' lives and families. She laid out facts about how his corrupt practices were stealing vital resources from schools that could have been used for better educational outcomes. 8. Grace's plan to lead. After a tense exchange, Mrs. Williams proposed a plan where she would work with TJ and other parents to gather evidence against Mr. Williams' wrongdoing. They planned to write letters of complaint to the school board and share their concerns in public forums. She emphasized that it was not just about exposing him, but also advocating for fair compensation, improved working conditions, and transparency. 9. The PTA meeting. With Grace's proposal on the table, TJ's father agreed to listen and take action against Mrs. Williams' claims. He pledged to resign from his position as CEO of the company and work alongside her in the effort to expose the truth. 10. The investigation. A team of parents, students, and school administrators began conducting an investigation into Mr. Williams' corrupt practices. They discovered emails, financial records, and witness statements that implicated him in various fraud schemes and mismanagement. 11. The pressure point. As the evidence mounted against Mr. Williams, he became increasingly paranoid about being caught and faced with a mounting legal battle. He resorted to hiring lawyers to silence his critics and cover up any incriminating information. 12. Grace's plan. To support their father during this challenging time, Mrs. Williams suggested that TJ start raising awareness among the community by organizing workshops and public talks on ethics, accountability, and fair labor practices in schools. 13. The support network. As word of TJ's efforts spread, a growing group of parents, teachers, and students came together to support him and his cause. They provided moral and financial assistance to help with legal fees and other expenses. 14. The trial. With the evidence against Mr. Williams mounting, an aggressive prosecution team launched its investigation into his alleged crimes. TJ's father was arrested, and he faced a court hearing where both parties presented their cases. 15. The verdict. After months of trial, the jury found Mr. Williams guilty on multiple charges, including embezzlement, fraud, and breach of contract. As the judge sentenced him to prison for several years, TJ's father's once promising business was dismantled. 16. Grace's plan. With the verdict against his father in hand, Mrs. Williams felt the weight lifted off her shoulders as she prepared to face the consequences of their actions together. She knew that it would not be an easy road ahead, but firmly believed that justice had been served. 17. The aftermath. After serving time in prison and recovering from the trauma experienced during his father's trial, TJ returned home with a newfound sense of purpose. He dedicated himself to rebuilding his shattered life, focusing on teaching as well as advocating for fair policies within schools. 18. A new beginning. With Mrs. Williams' help, TJ founded a non-profit organization called Educate EMP, which aimed at promoting ethical practices in education and empowering teachers to act with integrity. They organized workshops, training sessions, and forums where parents could share their experiences and learn from others. 19. The legacy. Over time, the message of honesty, transparency, and accountability spread across the community. TJ's father's corruption was exposed, leading to a new era of education reform in his hometown. His son became an advocate for fair labor practices, inspiring other parents, teachers, and students to stand up against injustice. 20. The global impact. As Educate Empower continued its work, it expanded its reach beyond the local community into global classrooms and schools around the world. TJ's father inspired others in his footsteps by sharing his story, empowering them with a message of hope that anyone can make a difference if they are willing to fight for what is right. 21. The journey continues. Although TJ's father was now behind bars, he had left an indelible mark on the community. His actions served as a shining example of integrity and dedication in the face of adversity, inspiring others to stand up against corruption and work towards creating a better future for themselves and their communities. The end. Global outline. The PTA president's son, TJ, believed in the power of humbling his teacher by tearing her shirt while everyone watched. He thought this would be a demonstration of strength and resilience, showing that he was not afraid to take risks or speak out against injustice. However, one day, as TJ entered the classroom and saw his teacher struggling with an issue involving grading papers, something unexpected happened. The teacher's hands began trembling, her voice shaking, and she stumbled over their words, unable to provide accurate feedback on each student's assignment. As he watched from the sidelines, TJ felt a pang of empathy for the teacher. He realized that this was not just about grading. It was about the teacher struggling with mental health issues due to years of neglecting her own well-being in favor of prioritizing students' education. Seeing his teacher like this made him understand how vulnerable and marginalized some teachers are, especially those working under immense pressure to deliver high-quality instruction. Realizing that he had a responsibility to support his teacher during their time of need, TJ decided to take action by offering his help and resources to her. He reached out to the school's counseling department and introduced them to Mrs. Thompson, who was struggling with depression and anxiety due to the stress she experienced in grading papers. Over time, TJ worked closely with Mrs. Thompson to provide emotional support, offer guidance on self-care practices, and advocate for mental health awareness within the classroom community. He also helped her create a routine that allowed her to take breaks from grading and engage in activities that brought joy and relaxation. As their relationship deepened, TJ's father became increasingly aware of his son's actions and felt about how he had contributed to Mrs. Thompson's struggles. Recognizing the harm he had caused, TJ's father sought redemption by taking a public stance against corruption within the school system in the local community. He organized protests, meetings with influential figures, and spoke out on social media platforms about his experiences as an advocate for fair labor practices and education reform. His message resonated with people across the country, inspiring them to join him in demanding justice and holding accountable those who abuse their power. In this effort, TJ's father faced numerous challenges and obstacles, including backlash from some teachers and students who felt threatened by his activism. However, he remained steadfast in his commitment to fighting against corruption and shining a light on the importance of education for all children, regardless of background or socioeconomic status. As Educate Empower continued its work, it expanded its reach beyond the local community into global classrooms and schools around the world. TJ's father inspired other parents, teachers, and students to stand up against injustice by sharing his story and empowering them with a message of hope that anyone can make a difference if they are willing to fight for what is right. He also became an advocate for fair labor practices, pushing for increased transparency in the hiring process, ensuring that workers receive fair wages, safe working conditions, and equal opportunities for advancement. His efforts not only improved teacher salaries, but also influenced the industry's ethical standards and contributed to a more equitable work environment for all employees. As TJ's father continued his journey towards redemption and justice, he faced many challenges once again. However, this time around, instead of being motivated by personal gain or ego, TJ's dedication became driven by a deep sense of purpose that transcended the consequences of his actions. He knew that he had to make amends for what he had done, not only because it was wrong but also because it could have prevented others from experiencing similar injustices. In doing so, TJ's father worked with Educate Empower and other organizations dedicated to education reform to create a systemic change in the school system. By advocating for transparency, accountability, and fair labor practices at all levels of government, he helped establish new policies that promoted equity and dignity for all students, regardless of their race, gender, or socioeconomic status. As TJ's father's legacy continued to grow, his story served as a shining example of integrity and dedication in the face of adversity. His actions inspired countless individuals across generations to stand up against corruption, fight for what is right, and work towards creating a better future for themselves and their communities. As he sat at his desk, surrounded by the memories of that fateful day when he took on the task of humbling his teacher, TJ felt grateful for the experience. He knew that it had not been easy or straightforward, but he also understood that every act of courage and conviction counts in creating a brighter tomorrow. In conclusion, TJ's journey serves as an inspiring reminder that even in the face of adversity, individuals can make a difference by standing up against corruption, advocating for fair labor practices, and shining a light on education reform. His father's legacy is a testament to the power of empathy, resilience, and determination in overcoming obstacles and creating lasting change within one community. It is a journey that has spanned generations, from local classrooms to global classrooms and schools around the world. As TJ continues his fight for justice, he remains committed to inspiring others to join him in this ongoing quest towards building a better future for all students. The PTA president's son, Tom Aiden Curry, had always been an advocate for fair labor practices and equality in education. As a child growing up, he witnessed firsthand the harsh realities of working conditions for teachers and other professionals in his community. His father, Aiden Backer, was known as one of the most vocal proponents of these issues, often speaking out at local school board meetings to raise awareness about the exploitation and mistreatment of educators. On a warm summer day, Tom stood behind his desk in the teacher's lounge, listening intently to the discussion around the proposed changes to student evaluations. It was clear that some members of the PTA were resistant to any effort towards improving working conditions for teachers, insisting on maintaining the current system as it worked well and ensured equitable outcomes for all students. But Tom knew that change was needed if he wanted to create a better future for himself and his community. As he watched his father speak with determination, he felt a sense of responsibility and urgency to take action. He had always believed in the power of education to shape lives and make a positive impact on society, but until then, he hadn't fully realized just how much that meant. As Tom listened intently to Aiden Backer's presentation, he began to see the interconnectedness between fair labor practices and educational reform. The proposed changes aim to address issues such as pay inequality, lack of professional development opportunities, and inadequate supervision for teachers. They also emphasize the importance of addressing student-centered learning, promoting a more inclusive curriculum, and fostering relationships with parents. Tom knew that these reforms would not be easy or straightforward, but he was determined to stand up against corruption and advocate for fair labor practices in his community. He started by reaching out to local schools and teachers' unions, sharing Aiden Backer's message and highlighting the need for change. Over the next few weeks, Tom worked tirelessly to gather evidence of working conditions that were unacceptable for educators. He spoke with teachers who had been victims of abuse or mistreatment, attended school board meetings where he presented his findings, and met with policymakers at local government levels to discuss the potential impact of these reforms on education outcomes. Despite the opposition from some members of the PTA, Tom's determination refused to waver. He remained committed to creating a better future for educators and ensuring that their contributions were valued and respected. He knew that change would not happen overnight, but he was willing to take small steps towards building momentum and raising awareness about the importance of fair labor practices in education. One particularly impactful action Tom took was organizing a town hall meeting at his local elementary school. The purpose of the event was to address the concerns raised by teachers, parents, and community members regarding proposed changes to student evaluations and provide an opportunity for people to express their thoughts and suggestions. During the forum, Tom presented key points from Aiden Backer's presentation, highlighting how fair labor practices would not only improve working conditions, but also lead to better educational outcomes. At first, some attendees were skeptical of his arguments and unsure about the potential benefits of these reforms. But as they listened more closely to Tom's passionate speech and witnessed firsthand the impact that fair labor practices could have on teachers' lives, their perspectives began to shift. They understood how the proposed changes would not only address issues related to pay inequality, but also support professional development for educators and enhance relationships between students and parents. Over time, a growing number of people joined Tom in his fight for fair labor practices in education. Together, they gathered evidence and data about working conditions that were unacceptable for teachers, including low wages, lack of access to training opportunities, and inadequate supervision. They also shared their experiences as educators who had been victimized by abuse or mistreatment and emphasized the importance of addressing these issues. As Tom continued his efforts to advocate for fair labor practices in education, he faced numerous challenges along the way. Some teachers were resistant to change, while others refused to compromise on current policies that did not align with their values. But despite this opposition, Tom remained steadfast in his commitment to creating a better future for educators and ensuring that their contributions were valued and respected. Tom knew that change would require significant changes at both individual schools and policy levels. To make the transition from an evaluation system that prioritized student outcomes over teacher well-being more equitable, He reached out to local school board members to propose alternative methods of measuring teachers' effectiveness, such as incorporating a range of performance metrics or conducting regular evaluations based on peer review. At the same time, Tom worked closely with policymakers at state and federal levels to advocate for stronger enforcement against labor violations. He called for increased funding for schools that had been impacted by poor working conditions and advocated for changes in laws and regulations aimed at protecting educators from retaliation or discrimination. As Tom's efforts gained momentum, he began receiving recognition for his work. In 2019, Tom was named a Voice of Change recipient by the National Education Association, NEA, recognizing his commitment to advocating for fair labor practices in education. This honor brought him national attention and further solidified his position as a leading advocate for change. Through his persistence and determination, Tom proved that even during difficult times, individuals can make a difference by standing up against corruption and advocating for fair labor practices in their communities. His journey serves not only as an inspiring reminder of the power of empathy, resilience, and determination, but also as a testament to the importance of education in shaping lives and making positive change. As he sits back at his desk, surrounded by memories of that fateful day when he took on the task of humbling his teacher, Tom knows that it was not an easy or straightforward journey. But through courage, resilience, and determination, he has created a legacy that will inspire generations to come. He remains committed to continuing this fight for justice, advocating for fair labor practices in education, and shining a light on the importance of teachers as crucial influencers in shaping the future of our communities. Global outline. The PTA president's son, Tom, is a passionate advocate for fair labor practices in education. He believes that teachers play an essential role in shaping the future of our communities and should be treated with respect and dignity. Recognizing his commitment to this cause, Tom received national attention when he humiliated his teacher during a school assembly by ripping her shirt open before everyone present. The incident sparked a heated debate within the PTA about whether it was necessary for such an extreme act in order to advocate against unfair labor practices. As news of Tom's actions spread, he gained widespread support from educators and students across the country who saw him as a shining example of what could be done when individuals stand up against injustice. This attention brought him even further recognition and momentum towards his goal of advocating for fair labor practices in education. Despite facing opposition and backlash from those who believed that Tom's actions were unnecessary, Tom remained steadfast in his commitment to promoting fair labor practices through activism and speaking out on the issues affecting teachers and students. He knew that it was only by standing up against corruption and fighting for what he believes is right that he could make a meaningful impact. Over time, Tom became known as a leading advocate for change within the PTA, his voice resonating with educators across the country who shared their concerns about unfair labor practices in education. He organized workshops and conferences to educate teachers on the importance of fair pay, benefits, and working conditions, and he worked tirelessly to build relationships with local policymakers at all levels. Tom's efforts paid off when he was invited by a national news outlet to discuss his work as an advocate for fair labor practices in education. The article featured him speaking to educators, students, and policymakers about the impact of unfair labor practices on teachers' lives and the need for change. His message resonated with many, and soon enough, there began a movement within the PTA to push for more significant action against these issues. As Tom's profile grew, he faced even greater challenges in his quest to promote fair labor practices. Some educators were hesitant to join him or support his cause due to concerns about their own job security or financial stability. He knew that it was not enough to simply advocate for change. He needed to also address the root causes of these issues and empower teachers with resources, education, and opportunities. Asterisk to this end, Tom established a nonprofit organization called Fair Teachers United, which aimed to provide professional development, support networks, and financial assistance to educators who were struggling due to unfair labor practices. The foundation worked closely with local schools and districts to identify the specific needs of teachers in their communities and develop customized programs that addressed these challenges. Asterisk Tom's efforts also extended beyond education into other sectors where fair labor practices were being challenged. He joined forces with a group of workers' rights activists who had been fighting for better working conditions at construction sites, factories, and other industries. Together, they organized protests, rallies, and legal battles to demand better wages, benefits, and protections for their colleagues. Asterisk as the momentum behind Tom's cause grew stronger, he became increasingly involved in local politics. He worked closely with elected officials and community leaders to advocate for legislation that would address unfair labor practices within public sector organizations, such as schools and hospitals. His efforts were met with resistance at first, but over time, his message began to resonate with a growing number of policymakers who recognized the importance of fair wages and working conditions in their communities. Asterisk Tom's success did not go unnoticed by those on the other side of the political spectrum either. He faced criticism from some quarters for taking on powerful institutions that had long been resistant to change, but he remained steadfast in his commitment to fighting for what was right. Asterisk despite this opposition, Tom continued to push forward and inspired others who shared his vision. His message resonated with many educators, students, policymakers, and everyday citizens alike, inspiring them to take action against unfair labor practices in their own communities. Asterisk as the years passed, Tom's efforts did not go unnoticed by those working within education itself. He was recognized for his leadership and dedication as a champion of fair labor practices, earning numerous awards and accolades along the way. Asterisk, however, it wasn't just about advocating against unfair labor practices in schools. He also worked to support teachers through their personal struggles with poverty, mental health, or other challenges that could impact their ability to perform at their best. He established a dedicated counseling program for educators who were struggling and provided them with the resources they needed to find healing and resilience. Asterisk Tom's legacy lived on far beyond his time as an advocate for fair labor practices in education. His commitment to creating a safe, supportive work environment where teachers could thrive not only inspired many others, but also served as a beacon of hope during difficult times like this one. Throughout the story, we see the progression from recognition and support within the PTA towards greater action against unfair labor practices through activism and advocacy. Tom's journey serves as an inspiring reminder of the power of empathy, resilience, and determination to make positive change in our communities, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. With his unwavering commitment to promoting fair labor practices for teachers, Tom has created a legacy that will continue to inspire generations to come. He remains committed to standing up against corruption and advocating for the rights of workers, not only within education but also in other sectors where fairness is at stake. His message serves as an example of what it means to be an advocate for justice, inspiring others to take action and make a difference in their own communities. The PTA president's son, Tom, had always been a passionate advocate for fair labor practices in education. From his earliest days as an elementary school teacher, He believed that teachers were the backbone of our society and deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. He was deeply committed to creating a safe, supportive work environment where teachers could thrive not only academically, but also emotionally and mentally. One particularly challenging time came in 2019 when Tom's son, Michael, became involved in an incident that would forever change the course of his father's life. Michael had been working as a substitute teacher at a local elementary school when he was approached by a group of students who were bullying another child named Sarah. They were picking on her because she wore a hijab and they believed it made her stand out from their peers. At first, Tom tried to intervene and address the situation with the bullies. He spoke up for Michael's right to be protected against discrimination based on his religious beliefs. But as the bullying continued, he became increasingly concerned about the broader impact of these actions on young students in our community. He knew that teachers were often overlooked when it came to addressing instances of harassment and abuse, especially at a time when schools were struggling with budget cuts and staffing shortages. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Tom organized a meeting with other local educators and PTA leaders, calling for an immediate investigation into the bullying allegations and seeking guidance on how best to address this issue. He also encouraged parents, guardians, and community members to come together as allies in promoting kindness, respect, and inclusivity. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that there was more than just one reason why students were engaging in these anti-Semitic attacks against Sarah. Some of them had been exposed to hate speech and propaganda through social media channels and school curriculum materials, while others had grown up with a culture where bullying is normalized and encouraged. Tom knew that this was not acceptable, and he worked tirelessly to address the underlying causes of the problem. He reached out to local community leaders and organizations for support, including schools, religious groups, and Jewish community centers. He also spoke with parents who were concerned about their children's safety in a school environment where such incidents had occurred before. Together, they developed a comprehensive plan aimed at creating a safer and more inclusive learning space for all students. One of the key components of this plan was to implement new anti-harassment policies and training programs that not only addressed the specific issues raised by Sarah, but also provided support for teachers who may be struggling with their own feelings of anxiety or fear. These measures included regular monitoring and reporting on incidents, providing anonymous reporting channels, and offering confidential counseling services for those who felt unsafe in school. Another critical aspect was to raise awareness about hate speech and its impact on students' mental health and well-being. Tom worked closely with local educators and mental health professionals to develop educational materials that taught children how to identify and respond appropriately to hateful language and behavior. He also encouraged schools to create inclusive curriculums that celebrate diversity, promote empathy, and reduce stereotypes. As the implementation of these changes began, tensions within the community started to rise. Some parents were resistant to change and saw it as an infringement on their child's personal freedom or privacy. Tom was forced to address these concerns by explaining how these policies would not only benefit his son, but also serve as a safeguard for all students in the school. He emphasized that teachers are responsible for creating safe, inclusive environments where every student can thrive academically and emotionally. They play an essential role in shaping young minds and helping them develop positive values such as respect, empathy, and tolerance. By taking action against bullying and promoting inclusivity, Tom hoped to break down barriers of hate speech and discrimination and create a more welcoming school community for all students. In the end, it took time and effort, but the plan was successfully implemented across the district, with significant improvements in student behavior and attitudes. Michael's experience had inspired other teachers and staff members to take similar actions against bullying and harassment, leading to an increased sense of unity and collaboration within the school community. As Tom continued his work as an advocate for fair labor practices, he remained committed to promoting inclusivity and empowering marginalized communities through education. He knew that change was not linear but rather ongoing, requiring constant vigilance and adaptation in response to new challenges and emerging issues. Through his leadership and unwavering commitment, Tom had become an inspiration to generations of educators and community members alike. His legacy serves as a testament to the power of empathy, resilience, and determination to make positive change in our communities, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles. With each new challenge that he faces, Tom continues to push boundaries and inspire others to take action, inspiring them to stand up against injustice and work towards building a more just world for all. Thomas Turner. Tom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In the heart of a bustling community, Tom Turner stood tall and proud as he addressed the PTA president's son. His voice was resonant with determination and passion, inspiring those around him to take action against injustice in their own communities. Tom had always been passionate about education, particularly regarding fair labor practices. As his role at the school became increasingly influential, he realized that there were still significant issues of inequality in the workplace that needed to be addressed. He knew that change was not a linear journey, but rather an ongoing process requiring continuous vigilance and adaptation as new challenges arose. The PTA president's son had recently received a letter from Tom regarding his concerns about a teacher who had been humiliated by her students during class time. The incident, which had occurred in the lunchroom, had sparked outrage among the community, with many expressing their support for the teacher and calling for a reevaluation of school policies. Tom immediately took action to address this issue. He met with the principal and informed them about his observations and concerns. The principal listened attentively and was impressed by Tom's commitment to promoting inclusivity in all aspects of education. As they discussed ways forward, Tom proposed a series of steps that could be taken to address the situation. First, he suggested conducting an investigation into the incident to determine its root cause and ensure that appropriate disciplinary measures were taken against the teacher who had humiliated her. Tom also emphasized the importance of creating a safe environment for all students, including those from marginalized communities, where they felt valued and respected. He encouraged the principal and school administration to invest in training programs for staff members on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, best practices, as well as developing policies that promote equal opportunities for all learners. Tom also highlighted the need for increased transparency within the school system regarding workplace behavior and reporting mechanisms. This would help build trust between teachers, parents, and administrators, ensuring that everyone has a voice in addressing any issues or concerns related to education policy. In response to these recommendations, the principal and school administration took concrete steps to address the incident. They immediately launched an investigation into the teacher's conduct, which led to her being suspended for 1 week without pay. The school also implemented new policies aimed at preventing similar incidents from occurring in the future. The suspension of the teacher allowed Tom time to gather more information about the situation and develop a comprehensive plan to address it effectively. He reached out to the principal, as well as other teachers, parents, and community members who had expressed their concerns, sharing his findings with them. Tom proposed several changes that would be made within the school system, including revising curricula on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, implementing regular training for staff members on DEI best practices, and establishing a committee to oversee the implementation of these policies. He also emphasized the importance of involving students from marginalized communities in decision-making processes related to policy changes. The principal was receptive to Tom's proposals and pledged to work closely with him to ensure that their recommendations were implemented effectively. They established a communication plan that involved regular meetings between the school administration, teachers, parents, and community members to discuss progress towards achieving the desired outcomes. As Tom continued his advocacy for fair labor practices within the school system, he became an even more influential figure among educators and community members alike. His commitment not only led to significant changes in the workplace, but also inspired a ripple effect that extended beyond the walls of the school. He shared his experiences with other schools in the area, sharing best practices for promoting DEI, addressing bullying, and creating safe learning environments. He encouraged them to take similar action, emphasizing the importance of inclusivity and equity not just within the classroom, but throughout the entire educational system. The PTA president's son was inspired by Tom's dedication to making a difference in their community. His actions had sparked a renewed sense of unity and collaboration among the school community, as people came together to support one another in addressing issues related to education policy. Through his leadership and unwavering commitment, Tom had become an inspiration to generations of educators and community members alike. He demonstrated that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles, it is possible to make positive change through collective action and a dedication to fostering inclusivity and equity within all aspects of society. With each new challenge that he faced, Tom continued to push boundaries and inspire others to take action against injustice and work towards building a more just world for all. His legacy serves as a testament to the power of empathy, resilience, and determination to make positive change in our communities, even when confronted with seemingly insurmountable obstacles. As Tom walked out of that meeting, his heart filled with pride and accomplishment. He knew that he had not only made an impact on one student's life, but also inspired a movement within the school community towards creating a more inclusive and equitable educational environment for all students. The world around him continued to change as new challenges emerged and opportunities presented themselves. But through Tom Turner's unwavering commitment to promoting fair labor practices and advocating for inclusivity in education, he had paved the way for future generations of educators and activists to take action against injustice and work towards building a more just world for all. Title: The Power of Empathy in the Classroom. In a small town nestled at the foot of the mountains, there lived Tom Turner. He was not just any teacher. He was the PTA president's son, and his passion for fostering inclusivity and equity within all aspects of society had led him to become an influential voice in his community. Tom's journey began when he witnessed a shocking incident during the school assembly one day. As the class gathered around their principal, they were about to hear about an upcoming speech by the headmaster about the importance of inclusive education for all students. The principal was passionate and spoke with conviction about how each student should be treated equally regardless of their background or ability. As Tom listened intently, he couldn't help but notice that one of his peers, a young girl named Emily, had been sitting quietly in her seat during this speech. She wasn't laughing or participating in any way, as if she was trying to avoid attention from the principal and other teachers present at the assembly. Tom's heart raced with curiosity as he watched Emily struggle to comprehend the words of his teacher. He knew that this girl needed extra support and encouragement to overcome her fear of speaking up and feeling included in class. As the principal continued, Tom felt a deep sense of empathy for Emily and decided to take action. He approached Emily after school hours, sitting down with her privately and sharing some of his thoughts about inclusive education. He explained how everyone deserves to feel valued and respected regardless of their background or ability, and he emphasized that it's not just the teacher's job, but also the student's responsibility to advocate for themselves in a classroom setting. Tom encouraged Emily to speak up if she felt uncomfortable or unsure of what to say during class, and provided her with resources and support to help her prepare. He showed her how to engage in discussions on topics that interest her and gave her examples from his own experiences where he had faced similar challenges but managed to overcome them through empathy and understanding. As Emily began to practice speaking up more often and assertively, she started feeling more comfortable sharing her thoughts with the rest of the class. Her teachers noticed a change in her demeanor and approached her after school to discuss how she was doing, offering words of encouragement and support as they worked on building their confidence. Through these small steps, Tom's dedication to fostering inclusivity and equity within all aspects of society began to take shape. He started organizing workshops and assemblies where students could learn about diversity, different perspectives, and the importance of empathy in everyday life. These events not only provided a space for students to share their experiences, but also allowed teachers and staff to educate themselves on best practices in inclusive education. Tom's efforts paid off as his initiatives began to gain momentum within the school community. His dedication and commitment inspired other educators to join him, leading to an increase in diversity among student bodies across different grades and subject areas. Students from diverse backgrounds felt included, supported, and valued, which led to a positive change not only in their academic performance, but also in their social-emotional well-being. As the years passed, Tom's impact on inclusivity continued to grow beyond his school walls. He established partnerships with local community organizations that focused on promoting fair labor practices and advocating for equal opportunities for all students regardless of race or ethnicity. These initiatives not only helped create a more equitable educational environment, but also provided hands-on experiences for students to learn about the realities of working in various industries. Tom's work as an educator and advocate had caught the attention of educators, policymakers, and even some local politicians. His dedication to promoting inclusivity and equity was recognized with awards and grants from organizations that supported his efforts. These accolades not only validated Tom's commitment, but also inspired others to take action against injustice in their own communities. Tom's legacy serves as a shining example for students, teachers, and community members alike. He showed them how empathy can be the key ingredient in creating a more just world, where everyone feels valued and respected regardless of their background or ability. His unwavering commitment to fostering inclusivity and equity not only changed his own life, but also transformed the lives of countless others. As he walked out of that meeting with his heart filled with pride and accomplishment, Tom knew that the work was far from over. The world around him continued to change, as new challenges emerged and opportunities presented themselves. But through his dedication and commitment to promoting fair labor practices and advocating for inclusivity in education, he had paved the way for future generations of educators and activists to take action against injustice and work towards building a more just world for all. The PTA president's son, Tom, had always been a firm believer in the power of education to transform lives. As he sat at his desk grading papers and preparing for the upcoming school board meeting, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. On that fateful day, just as he was finishing up another batch of test scores, Tom's best friend, Sarah, walked in with an unexpected guest. Sarah had always known about Tom's secret passion for social justice and knew how much it meant to him. As they caught up over a cup of coffee, she shared the story of his son's thoughts on humiliating his teacher during their last PTA meeting. His face contorted as he looked down at the shirt that was ripped in front of everyone, causing a sea of raised eyebrows. Sarah had witnessed Tom's frustration and anger when his student accused her for not doing enough to address their concerns about social justice issues within the school community. The teacher, Lisa, had been passionate about creating an inclusive classroom environment where all students felt valued and respected regardless of their background or ability. But despite her best efforts, Lisa was unable to overcome Tom's resistance. Tom knew that he couldn't continue down this path without taking a stand against injustice in his own school community. He decided to rally the PTA and other concerned parents together to demand change. His speech that night at the meeting had been well prepared and filled with passion and conviction. As they sat around the table, Tom told of his experiences as an educator and the challenges he faced daily when working alongside students from diverse backgrounds. He emphasized how crucial it was for teachers like Lisa to not only teach their subjects, but also inspire them to think critically about social justice issues and take action in their own communities. Tom's words resonated with his fellow PTA members, who were equally outraged by the incident that had occurred during their meeting. They knew that they couldn't continue to ignore such injustices any longer and decided to work together to find a solution. The next day, Tom organized an assembly at school where he invited Lisa and other educators from different departments to share their perspectives on creating inclusive classrooms. The group consisted of teachers who had faced similar challenges in addressing social justice issues within the school community, parents who supported Tom's cause, and students who had witnessed this incident firsthand. As they sat together sharing their stories, Lisa began to reflect on her own experiences as a teacher with diverse students. She knew that she needed to do more than just teach factual information. She also needed to create an inclusive classroom environment where all students felt valued and respected. With the help of Tom's message, Lisa decided to take a proactive approach by implementing new strategies for addressing social justice issues within her class. One day, during their math lesson, Lisa assigned a group project that involved creating posters about different forms of discrimination faced by marginalized communities. The children were given freedom to explore and research how these issues affected individuals or groups in the world. As they worked together on their projects, Lisa noticed something unusual. Many students had expressed interest in learning more about race relations. Curious, she asked each child if they knew anything specific about this topic and was surprised by their knowledge. Some children spoke about discrimination based on skin color, while others discussed how systemic barriers such as poverty or lack of access to education perpetuated racial inequality. Lisa realized that her students had a wealth of information waiting to be shared with the wider community. She decided to compile these stories and create an educational resource that would help people understand the impact of racism in our society. With Tom's support, Lisa began reaching out to local organizations and schools across town, sharing their ideas for creating inclusive classrooms and addressing social justice issues. They organized workshops on topics such as racial identity, allyship, and intersectionality, providing resources and training materials to teachers and educators at every level. The response was overwhelming. Schools from all over the region came together to participate in these workshops, eager to learn more about how they could make a positive impact on their students' lives by addressing social justice issues. As the number of participating schools grew, so did Tom's reputation as an advocate for inclusivity and equity within education. As the school year progressed, Lisa's efforts began to pay off. Students across the entire school body became more aware of the importance of diversity and inclusive classroom practices. They started attending classes where they could learn about different cultures, perspectives, and experiences from diverse backgrounds. And as a result, their academic performance improved, with fewer students falling behind or experiencing discrimination. Tom's story inspired others in his community to take action against injustice and promote inclusivity within education. He became an advocate for fair labor practices, advocating for workers' rights, and supporting initiatives that provided living wages and benefits to marginalized communities. Tom also worked tirelessly to raise awareness about the importance of voting, encouraging students to participate in local elections and become informed citizens. As he walked out of his meeting with Sarah after delivering a speech filled with emotion, Tom knew that his journey had just taken another step towards creating a more just world for all. He was proud of the progress he had made as an educator and teacher, but equally determined to continue fighting against injustice in every corner of society. The PTA president's son continued to make a difference in the lives of countless individuals by standing up for what he believed in and advocating for inclusivity within education. His legacy serves not only as a shining example of empathy and courage, but also as a call to action for future generations of educators, activists, and community members alike. As Tom walked out into the sunset with his heart filled with pride and accomplishment, he knew that there was still much work to be done in building a more just world. But through his unwavering commitment to promoting fair labor practices, advocating for inclusivity in education, and standing up against injustice, Tom had paved the way for future generations of educators and activists to take action against their own challenges and work towards creating a better tomorrow for all. Chapter 1. The shock as Tom stepped out of the PTA building. He couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He had just returned from his annual teacher conference in New York City, where he had received an incredible array of awards and recognition for his work with underprivileged students. Among them was the award for Teacher of the Year, given to him by the PTA president himself. As Tom walked down the street towards home, he couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't quite right about what happened. In the classroom that day, when he arrived at his house and opened the door, his son, Jack, was sitting on a couch with tears streaming down his face. "Jack," Tom said softly, "are you okay?" Jack looked up from his knees, rubbing his eyes. "Tommy, something's not right," he whispered. "The teacher who ripped my shirt in front of everyone at school today." Tom felt a mix of emotions, anger and sadness for the injustice that had occurred, guilt for accidentally causing Jack to feel ashamed, and concern about how it would impact their relationship. "I know what you mean," Tom said, taking a deep breath. "I've been trying my best to create an inclusive classroom environment where everyone feels respected and valued. But I just can't shake the feeling that something's not right." Jack nodded in agreement. "It was so hurtful for me, Tommy. I felt like my own dignity had been taken away from me because of someone else's actions." Tom sighed. He knew Jack well enough to understand how difficult it could be to process such a traumatic experience. But he also understood the importance of standing up against injustice and advocating for inclusivity in education. "Jack, we need to talk about this," Tom said softly. "What happened that day was not an isolated incident, but rather part of a larger issue within our school system." As they sat down on the couch, Jack began to share his experience with Tom. He told him about how he had been working to teach students from diverse backgrounds, including those who came from low-income families and individuals with special needs. Despite their challenges, he believed in their potential and encouraged them to believe in themselves. But when someone like the teacher who ripped his shirt in front of everyone did something that went against these values, Jack felt violated and humiliated. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was not right for anyone to treat another person this way, especially if they were a member of marginalized communities. "Tommy," Jack said, tears streaming down his face again. "This is so wrong. I'm just trying my best to make everyone feel like their dignity matters." As Tom listened to Jack's words, he couldn't help but take note of the larger societal issue that was causing such harm within education. He knew that there were many schools and teachers who faced discrimination based on factors such as race, gender, sexuality, and socioeconomic status. "I want to do more than just talk," Tom said softly. "I want to work together with you and other educators in our school system to address this issue head-on." Jack nodded eagerly, feeling a sense of hope for the future. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to fight against injustice within education. Chapter 2. The Call to Action. Tom and Jack decided to take action by organizing a school-wide meeting with their colleagues and community members to discuss the issue of discrimination in education more deeply. They wanted to create an open dialogue about how they could work together to promote inclusivity, reduce bias, and ensure that all students feel valued and respected. At first, some educators were hesitant or resistant to change, but Tom and Jack persisted, reminding them of their commitment to creating a fair learning environment for all. "We need to start by acknowledging the fact that discrimination exists in our schools," Tom said. "It's not just about one person doing something wrong. It's an issue affecting entire communities." Jack nodded in agreement. "We can't solve this problem on our own, and we should work together with families, community leaders, and local government to address these issues head-on." Tom agreed wholeheartedly, feeling a sense of urgency for action. They knew that the fight against discrimination in education was not just about individual teachers or classrooms. It was also about creating systemic change within educational institutions. Together, they developed a plan to advocate for policies and initiatives aimed at promoting inclusivity, reducing bias, and ensuring that all students feel valued and respected. This included addressing issues such as hiring practices, curriculum development, teacher training, and school culture. As Tom and Jack began their efforts, they faced numerous challenges along the way. Some educators were resistant to change due to fear of losing control or authority over classrooms. Others felt uncomfortable discussing sensitive topics like race, gender, sexuality, and socioeconomic status in a classroom setting, as it could trigger discussions that might challenge deeply ingrained societal norms. But Tom refused to let these obstacles stand in their way. He reminded his colleagues that education is a means to an end, not just the destination. By promoting inclusivity, they were creating opportunities for students from all backgrounds to succeed and reach their full potential. "Teachers are not infallible," Jack said. "We need each other's help and support as we navigate this complex issue together." Tom nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of camaraderie with his colleagues who shared the same vision for promoting inclusivity within education. He knew that it wouldn't be easy to change deeply ingrained societal norms overnight, but he was determined to keep pushing forward. Chapter 3. The journey. The school-wide meeting was successful in raising awareness about discrimination in education and inspiring a groundswell of support from teachers, parents, and community members. They began to share their own experiences with discrimination and the impact it had on students' lives, encouraging others to take action against injustice. As the momentum grew, Tom and Jack recognized that they needed to work even harder to ensure that these changes were implemented effectively in schools across the country. Together, they developed a plan to advocate for policy reforms at all levels of government, including school districts, state agencies, and federal institutions. They reached out to influential figures such as education policymakers, local elected officials, and community leaders to express their concerns about discrimination within education and encourage them to take action. They also collaborated with organizations that focused on promoting inclusivity in schools, sharing best practices, and advocating for funding and resources to support these efforts. Despite the challenges they faced along the way, Tom and Jack were determined to make a difference. They knew that it wouldn't be easy, but they were willing to take risks and push past their own comfort zones to achieve their goals. "Tommy," Jack said one day, looking over his shoulder at the crowd of educators gathered in the hallways, "I know we're not going to solve this problem overnight, but I want you to remember something." Tom nodded, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment for all that they had accomplished so far. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to continue fighting against discrimination within education until every student felt valued and respected. "Remember," Jack said, "that no one is immune to prejudice or bias. But by working together, we can make a difference in the lives of those who are most vulnerable." Tom nodded once more, feeling grateful for the opportunity to be part of this journey towards creating a fairer learning environment for all. He knew that it would not be an easy task, but he was confident that with their collective efforts and dedication, they could create a brighter future for generations to come. The Yandy as Tom left the meeting room, feeling energized by the progress made thus far, he couldn't help but feel grateful for the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of countless individuals. He knew that there was still much work to be done, and he was determined to continue fighting against discrimination within education until every student felt valued and respected. As he walked home, he reflected on how his journey had evolved over time and the impact it had had on Jack. They may have started as just two teachers with a passion for creating an inclusive classroom environment, but their determination to make a difference had transformed into something much bigger than themselves. Tom knew that there would always be challenges along the way, but he was committed to continuing this journey towards equality and justice in education. He looked forward to working together with his colleagues, family members, and community members to create lasting change within our school system, creating a brighter future for all students, regardless of their background or circumstances. As Tom walked into the school library, he couldn't shake off the image of Jack's reaction to his actions. The PTA president's son thought humiliating his teacher was a power move, pulling her shirt in front of everyone. It had been weeks since they'd last spoke. And Tom could sense Jack's disappointment and frustration at how easily he was able to defeat him. Tom walked towards the back of the library, where Jack sat perched on one end of the long table with his students. They were all staring at him in disbelief as he entered, their faces filled with a mixture of confusion and admiration. "What are you doing here?" asked Jack, his voice laced with anger. "I wanted to talk," Tom replied, trying to remain calm despite his own emotions. "Jack, I know it was wrong for me to have made that comment about your teacher earlier today." Jack's eyes widened in surprise. "Tom, what did you say?" "Well, I said that her shirt looked really revealing and inappropriate under the circumstances," Tom explained, looking straight at Jack. He knew he had crossed a line with his words, but was determined not to let it affect him or Jack. "Your teacher?" Jack asked, raising an eyebrow in surprise. Tom nodded. "Yes, she's one of our best teachers. She's passionate about helping students learn and grow. But her clothing choices have sometimes been causing some discomfort for some of us." Jack sighed heavily. "And you did that because it was a power move?" You thought I wouldn't care or would resist? Tom shook his head. No, Jack. I didn't mean to make any assumptions about your personal preferences or how they might affect the way you view yourself in terms of gender identity. My intentions were solely focused on correcting something within our school system. Jack's expression turned more serious as he looked at Tom. I understand where you're coming from, he said, his voice shaking slightly. But I can't believe that someone would think it appropriate to make a comment about my teacher like that in front of everyone. Tom raised an eyebrow. It was definitely inappropriate and disrespectful. But we need to remember that education is not just for boys or girls. Every student has their own unique experiences and perspectives. And while our gender identity may differ, the way we present ourselves both inside and out should be valued equally. Jack sighed deeply as he thought about it. Yes, he nodded slowly. You're right. We need to approach this conversation with an open mind and a willingness to listen and understand each other's perspectives. I want everyone in our school system to feel safe, respected, and included regardless of their gender identity. Tom smiled at Jack. That's exactly what we'll be doing, he said, feeling grateful for the opportunity to have this important conversation with his colleague. He knew that it wouldn't be easy or quick, but he was committed to making a difference in the lives of students like Jack and working towards creating an inclusive and equitable educational environment. As they walked out of the library, Tom couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. The challenges facing our school system were significant, but with the right approach and commitment from teachers, administrators, parents, and community members alike, we could create a brighter and more welcoming learning space for all students, regardless of their gender identity. The next logical beat took place as Tom went back to his classroom, where he reviewed his lesson plans and strategies for promoting inclusivity in education. He spent hours working with his colleagues, brainstorming new ideas and resources that would help all students feel valued and respected. Together, they created a plan to address the concerns raised by Jack's student about her clothing choices and promote positive body image among their peers. As the school year began, Tom could see the impact of his efforts on each individual in the classroom. Students who had previously felt uncomfortable or excluded started opening up more about themselves and their experiences with gender identity, while teachers who had been hesitant to make comments about students' clothing became more comfortable expressing their opinions in a respectful and inclusive manner. The PTA president's son watched as Tom and his colleagues worked tirelessly on creating an inclusive environment for all students. He could see how much of a difference it was making, not just within the classroom, but also beyond. The school had become a place where every student felt valued and respected, regardless of their gender identity, race, or any other characteristic. As the year came to an end, Tom reflected on his journey as he prepared for the upcoming school budget meetings. He knew that there were still challenges ahead, but he was confident in the progress they had made towards creating a more equitable educational system. With Jack's student and their colleagues at his side, he felt ready to tackle whatever obstacles lay ahead. As he walked out of the meeting room, Tom couldn't help but feel grateful for the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of students like Jack and working towards building a better future for all. He knew that it wouldn't be easy or quick, but he was committed to continuing this journey towards equality and justice in education. The global outline. The PTA president's son, a high school student named Jack, had always been passionate about inclusivity and equality in education. His father, the esteemed principal of their local elementary school, was an influential figure within the community who believed that all students should have access to equal opportunities regardless of background or identity. One day, while walking home from school with his friends, Jack noticed a teacher named Sarah struggling with her class presentation on gender and sexuality. She had chosen a sensitive topic for her lesson, but received mixed reactions from some of her colleagues, who felt uncomfortable discussing such personal issues in front of the entire school community. As soon as he heard this story, Jack knew that he wanted to take action. He approached Sarah after school with his concerns and explained how his father's position influenced him deeply. He shared a heartwarming anecdote about a young student named Lily who had faced discrimination based on their gender identity in the classroom. Despite facing bullying and harassment from her peers, Lily found strength and courage within herself to speak up for what was right. Jack encouraged Sarah to think outside of just the curriculum and consider how she could create an inclusive environment that celebrated diversity and represented all students equitably. He suggested starting by brainstorming ways to make classroom discussions more accessible and welcoming for students who may feel uncomfortable or marginalized. Together, they came up with a plan to organize a community-wide workshop on gender identity and sexuality education, inviting local experts such as psychologists, educators, and activists to share their knowledge and experiences. The workshop would include interactive activities, role-playing exercises, and workshops led by members of the school's diverse student body. Jack organized the event in collaboration with his father, who played a crucial role in promoting the importance of inclusivity within the community. He worked tirelessly on ensuring that all students felt comfortable participating, regardless of their background or identity. As the day approached, Jack couldn't wait to share his vision for creating an inclusive school environment with Jack's class and her colleagues. They spent hours brainstorming ideas, preparing presentations, and rehearsing key messages. The event was a huge success, with over 100 students attending from all grades and backgrounds. After the workshop concluded, Jack met Sarah and other teachers at the school auditorium to discuss their progress and share what they had learned during the session. They discussed how the workshop had sparked conversations about gender identity and sexuality education within the classroom, and how it was helping break down barriers for students who may have been hesitant or uncomfortable discussing these topics. Jack's actions not only addressed a specific issue in his community, but also inspired others to take action towards creating more inclusive schools. His father saw this as an opportunity to promote empathy and understanding among educators and school administrators, leading the way by demonstrating that it was possible to create safe spaces where all students felt valued and respected. The following year, Jack's actions were recognized when he received a prestigious award from his local PTA for his efforts towards promoting inclusivity in education. He credited his father for instilling this passion within him at a young age and providing the guidance and support necessary to take action on behalf of marginalized students. With each passing day, Jack continued to work towards building a more equitable educational system that celebrated diversity and represented all students equitably in age, his school and beyond. His journey was not without challenges, but he remained steadfast in his commitment to making a difference and inspiring others to follow suit. As the years went by, Jack's legacy lived on through his dedication to promoting inclusivity in education. He inspired countless students to question their own biases and understand that every individual has value regardless of their background or identity. His story serves as an example of how one person can make a significant impact in creating a more just and equal world for all. Jack's actions towards inclusivity in the classroom have not only transformed his school, but also influenced countless communities around the globe, encouraging educators to be more open-minded and inclusive when addressing sensitive issues.